I am so excited for today's guest because today I sit down with married couple Brad and Paige. This incredible couple has walked through several struggles and years of wading through infertility, loss, and even deportation. But through it all, they discovered what it means to truly live in the empty spaces and not waste the wait. Let's get into it. Brad and Paige, thanks so much for joining us on the No Gray Areas podcast. I want to just jump right in. You guys got married back in 2017, and right after your marriage and your honeymoon, I believe, right?
Yeah.
You kind of had a shock that very few of our listeners probably had to start their married life off with. Explain what happened.
Yeah, I highly recommend you start your marriage this way. So I'm from South Africa, which is why I talk a little funny.
Yeah, it's not funny. It's really cool.
Praise God.
Yeah.
Came to the States. Obviously, we met here in America. Ended up getting engaged, got married. So we applied for, it's called an adjustment of status. Okay. And we went on honeymoon. We went to Jamaica, which was awesome. Had so much jerk chicken. Like, we're having the time of our lives.
First 5 days of marriage. Beautiful.
Yeah. So we're so ready to come back. We're about to move. We packed up our house and we're ready to start our lives. Coming through passport control, I end up being pulled by some police officers, and they were like, "Who is this person?"
No, it was like a TSA agent.
Yeah. They're like, "Who's this person?" And I'm like, "It's my wife." And they're like, "Come with me." I ended up getting detained.
Were you kind of nervous right away, or were you thinking like?
No, I was like, I'm great.
Yeah, you just came back from Jamaica. You're thinking everything's positive.
I was literally like, go on ahead. I was like,
we have a few more. We've got a few questions for you, and waved me on, and we're just like, we just got to ask him some questions. So
I go into this room. They grab my phone. They grab everything, and they're like, "We're sending you back to South Africa." And I'm like, "Wait, what?" And they're like, "Yeah, you have no status here. You have nothing. So basically, I get everything taken." I'm detained for it was like 24 to 36 hours. And I get one phone call. So it's almost like I'm like in prison.
Yeah.
So it's like, fortunately, I was able to call her and call my parents who were in America for our wedding.
They had never left.
They hadn't left because
we'd gotten married. They had come.
They were still
over.
here. And I'm like, "Hey, by the way, I'm going to South Africa. I'm going to beat you there. I'll come and greet you at the airport." But our whole life just got turned upside down. Mm-hmm. And they were like, "Hey, this happens all the time. It's going to take 2 weeks," and it took 2 years. Mm-hmm. So I was in South Africa for 2 years, and she had to do, we did long distance. So highly recommend you start your marriage that way.
So your first 2 years, you've been married about 8 years now, but your first 2 years, you guys are half the world apart, basically, and then like visiting every once in a while.
Yes, I was able to, I worked in social media and marketing at the time. I worked with a company and had to kind of start my own consulting because I needed to be able to be flexible to come be with him. I was like, there's no way, I'm not doing long distance marriage. I didn't sign up for this. I was actually ready. They came on my side of the story when the security person came and told me, came out to me sitting on the phone with my dad because I'm like, something's wrong. Brad's been back there for a long time. Comes and tells me, your husband's getting sent back to South Africa. My immediate response is like, okay, can I go with him? And they're like,
absolutely
no.
not.
I'm like, well, we just got married. Like, you don't understand. So I immediately was like, I knew the moment this happened to us that I was like, we're not going to be apart and we're going to fight for this. And so even on his first call, I'm like, so should I get on the next flight? He's like, no, absolutely not. We're going to work this out.
2 weeks. It's going to be easy.
We're going to figure this out.
It'll be hilarious.
It was 6 weeks later that I ended up getting on a plane and booked a one-way flight to South Africa and stayed as long as I could on my visitor status. And
how long was that? Was that like a month?
I was able to be there, and when I was there, file for extension, and in total, I think I was there 5 months the first time.
Okay.
Which we never thought we'd be there that long.
Yeah.
In total. So then I would book a one-way home, and then I'd be home for a couple months, long enough for my really my status, like the complexity of it's pretty crazy, but for me to be able to go back into the country again. And we did that. I did that 6 times. And it was just brutal every single time. And even just, we were young.
Imagine the
we were paying
were
attorney fees. We were buying these expensive flights, and we just thought, it was the crazy season of our life. And I don't know that we've ever prayed harder or more frequently than we did in those two years. Because it was truly, I always tell people, it wasn't like someone said to us, hey, this is going to take 2 years, settle in. It was, hey, this could take 2 weeks. And then 2 weeks was like, okay, this may take a few months. And then after a few months, it would be like, okay, really, it should be any day now. And when I say that, we called the immigration services every single day for the remainder of that 2 years, thinking that this could be the day that we get what we need to go back home. So we truly lived day by day by day.
Yeah.
And that can be brutal for anyone.
Yeah.
It's a unique situation, but I think so many people can relate. Whatever their story is, you're living day by day on a prayer.
Yeah.
Not many people experience the deportation side, but
People relate to that.
But relate to like every day, just
It
thinking
could be
this will
any
be
day.
this will
It
be the
could be
day
tomorrow.
I get breakthrough. This will
For
be the
600
day
days.
I get the answer. This will be the day that I get the cancer-free, diagnosed, like that I'm freed of this. So we felt it in a very tangible way, but really we took that season to just share in the moment the pain and the grief of waiting, and really were able to connect with so many people even online that were walking through that. And so we realized it was the first of many waiting seasons for us, but it was an intense and unique one for sure.
Yeah.
I did a message years ago, and it was about waiting, the difficulty with waiting. So, the whole, you guys are about to plant a church, where we're going to get into later, so you know how this works. But, they did the whole little bumper video and everything, and then I walk out on the stage, and the lights come up, and then I just stood there quiet. Like,
Brilliant.
as long as, like, it was so awkward in the room, like, people started, like, moving around a little bit.
Is he okay?
Yeah. And then the funny thing is like, I had just been really honest with them, because back in, like, when I was about 10 years ago, I started struggling with panic attacks a lot.
Oh, wow.
Around speaking. So I had shared that with the congregation, so I could actually see some people like praying for me, because they're thinking, he's having a panic attack. But the first words out of my mouth after this long, uncomfortable wait, I said, waiting is very difficult. Waiting is awkward. Waiting is...
So
and we do, like you said, everybody understands that. Maybe they didn't go through what you guys did with the deportation and everything, but it's like, you think it's going to be a day or a week, and that turns into a month and 2 months and 6 months and 8 months, and that's just difficult. And you guys actually, now let me pivot to another part of your story. You actually dealt with this struggle with waiting in another area of your life, right?
Yes.
Like, infertility was one of the things that you guys battled, and I know we have some of our listeners that have been there or maybe are there right now, and that's another place, right? Where you're just like going, how long, God?
Yes.
It was crazy. It was crazy even how it happened, because we decided that we wanted to start a family, and we got pregnant within, it was like 2 months.
Yeah, we got pregnant in April of 2020, which we all know what happened in 2020. And so 8 weeks into the pregnancy, we had miscarriage, and kind of a dramatic one at that, with I had to have emergency surgery and all the things, and with not only just with what was happening in the world, but for us, I think not being that far removed from an intense waiting season, getting back to America, definitely for me, the temptation was like, okay, God, haven't we been through enough? Like, haven't we, even just grieving, I lost my mom when I was 19. So and she'd had several battles with cancer growing up. So it's like, I'd experienced grief, and I was kind of like, okay, God, like, I thought I had like paid my tax on this, I didn't think this was going to be another area, but we had gotten pregnant so quickly that we were experiencing grief through the miscarriage, but we were still like super hopeful and just like, okay, well, we're going to grieve that, but we're going to try again. And then we experienced 3 years of unexplained infertility, seeing doctors, just no answers, no reason why.
Which is kind of the worst. You wish you would know what it is. When it's unexplained,
so
it's
you
like
guys just weren't getting any answers.
Yeah, there's nothing we can do. It's
there
just,
was no
I don't know why it's
action
happening, but
plan
it's
or like do this and then.
Which again, though, just let me jump in really quick. Which again, for our audience listening, I know they've been there. If you've lived enough life, you've been there, or you're there now.
Totally.
Where you're like, if I could just get an answer. If
then
I
at
could
least
just
I can
know
live with
why.
that. Yeah.
But that's not how grief
Often.
or pain or struggles in life work very often,
No,
right?
100%. 100%.
Yeah. So 3 years, and we were actually in the process of doing our first fertility treatment. Well, I had taken like medication and done some I'd call them like light versions of just like trying to optimize fertility, but we had scheduled like our first, it's called like IUI, for those who are on that journey would know what that is. We had scheduled it, and that was like a total faith step for me to even just schedule it, the courage it takes to just be like, okay, we're going to try something different. And I was actually, so this might be TMI for listeners, but I was so frustrated because those things are scheduled based on your woman's cycle. And my cycle became off that month, and it was so regular, and I was so frustrated.
So like the 1 month you're going to do
Yes.
this, all of a
She's
sudden
like, why? She's like, this is messing
I tell
everything
him,
up.
I'm like, God, seriously, you got me this far, and now I have to reschedule. What if they can't fit me in? You're just so ready to have this blessing that we felt like God had promised us. And so I'm so frustrated. And I actually had a friend of mine, my best friend, text me out of the blue. She didn't even know I was doing this treatment. And she said, "Are you pregnant?" And I was like, okay, you know better than to ask me this question. That's what I want so bad. She wasn't like, she just was, that's all she said. And I was just like, no.
She's highly discerning.
And I was like, no, but I'm late. Like, it's just, I'm frustrated because I actually was doing this procedure, all that. And she said, well, if your period doesn't come in a couple of days, you need to take a test. And I was just like, I'm so tired of taking tests. It's just the worst to see negative after negative after negative. And 2 days later, I was going to have to call and schedule an appointment. I was just like, let me take a test. And it was positive. And I was just in that, obviously, like this huge answer to prayer in that moment. But I remember my first thought was like, God, I'm so sorry. Like I was mad. I was mad at you for not like allowing this to go my way, thinking I need to have this procedure. And meanwhile, my cycle's late because it's already done. Like it's already finished. And so it was such a, like, just God took us on such a faith journey with that. And I had to just like realize like, it's just a sanctification process for me and even my faith and thinking, I trust you, God, totally. And no, I was still so much trusting in my plans for how it was going to happen. And his plan was way better than mine.
Yeah.
And we're so grateful for even just like this beautiful, wild story and the way that it came to be.
It's funny. It definitely was a total surprise. It wasn't like, you know, where it's like you have the pregnancy test and you're like, oh, I'm going to film it. And like, you know, I'm going to try to announce it to my husband in some way.
Mm-hmm.
She was so, like, she so did not expect it. She took the test. It was sitting somewhere. And
I
then
just
she
didn't
even check it. And then eventually she did. And she realized what it was. And I was sleeping. It was early in the morning. And she just ran into the room and just went, ugh, and
I just threw it at him.
Like literally something hits me and I'm like, what? And I look and we just lost our minds. It was the best gift in the world. But
and
what was even so crazy about that season though, like one of the things that we've even learned in our marriage was when I was in South Africa, I would probably say that was harder on me than it was on you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some of it is obviously as a husband, as a provider, like you just want to start.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're like day by day, you're going and you're like, man, I can't even really get a good job because it's like, hey, can you employ me? I might be gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know, or you want to provide, you want to get a house and you're like, I can sign a lease, but it might be a week.
Yeah.
So for me, that was brutal. Obviously in the infertility season, I would say it was probably a little bit harder on you than it was on me because it feels like it's happening in your body to you. But one of the things that we've always learned, even in our marriage, is it's almost like your marriage is a canoe, and when one person's leaning the other way, the other person has to lean the other. So when I was ready to tip us over, because I'm frustrated, Paige is saying, no, God's got us.
Mm-hmm.
And when she's
Great
saying,
analogy.
when she's like, man, I'm going to go overboard, and I'm like, no, God's got us. And I think one of the challenges we've even seen in marriages, and God had to teach us this early on, is a lot of times one person's like, I'm done, and the other person's like, I'm done too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And now you capsized.
Yeah.
What good does it do if you're both drowning? You know, you have to.
One has to be strong,
and it can be hard. But thankfully for us, we were able to navigate.
You
that.
guys had those seasons where you were, like you said, you were both one was leaning one way and one's. So let's speak into that a little bit because again, a universal thing for all of our listeners, me included, sitting here is pain, is struggle, right? And I've said this. Our listeners heard me say this before. I grew up in the church. I grew up with a biblical worldview. But there's certain lies that you didn't realize you were believing until a lot of times pain comes in. So one of the lies that I preached against all the time when I would speak, but until I went through some real struggles, I realized that deep within my soul, I believe this lie that if you live a good life, you should get a good life.
Totally.
You know, like, hey, if I really follow you, God, and I do these things, then
I'm going to have all these things.
I should have all these good things happen. And then, you know, like you're saying, all of a sudden it's like, wait, what? You know, we had a miscarriage and we think we're going to get pregnant right away. And now we go through these years of struggle. So I know every listener is going, been there.
Yeah.
I've been there. So just talk through from your journey and from your theology, how do we walk through pain? Well, how do we deal with suffering? Hey, we hope you've enjoyed this episode so far. Be sure to like and subscribe to not miss a future podcast. Okay, let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, it's so hard because it's this balance between human choice and life, and then also God's sovereignty, and when does God come in and when does God not come in? And obviously, I think we've all lived into that space where we say, okay, if I live a good life, then I'm going to have a good life. where, like you said, a biblical worldview is Jesus says, in this world you will have trouble.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
Yes.
a good life isn't promised. What actually is promised is trouble.
Yep.
And I would say that season in South Africa, I wouldn't wish for it on anyone, but I wouldn't change it.
Mhm.
And
Why is that?
because God did so much in me.
Hmm.
I would say before that season in South Africa, I had so much ambition. Even when it comes to planning a church, which we're doing now, I had so much ambition and I just wanted to do it. And someone once said to me that pride is a dagger that is pointed at your own heart.
Mm,
And when the enemy is ready, he'll push you into it.
mm,
And they
Wow.
said, I need you to blunt that dagger. And I had so much ambition, so much just, I'm going to do this thing. And then God took us in the season in South Africa. And he taught me so much about, honestly, what you were talking about, almost like this prosperity gospel kind of thing that we can have.
yeah.
And I remember being in South Africa and people are like, you just need to live by faith.
Mhm.
So for the first couple months, I lived out of a suitcase.
Mhm.
Wow.
That's faith.
Yeah.
And
'Cause
then
tomorrow you may have to
'cause-
go.
Keep
Yeah.
the
kind of
bags
idea.
packed.
Yeah,
I keep my bags packed.
Yeah.
And then I had a moment where it was like, okay, God, you're not doing, I'm going to fast. And I'm like, I'm going to fast. And then it was, what prayer can I pray? Like, what do I need? And the entire time I was trying to figure out how I could twist the arm of God to act on my behalf.
Mm.
And I know that sounds like crazy, but that's what we all do, don't we?
Oh
we have
my
these
goodness,
we have these
yes.
moments where we're like, I'm gonna fast, I'm gonna pray, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this. And when I do all these things, then you will move.
Yeah.
And it's like I just had to come to a place where I was like, God, I'm desperate. I don't know what you're doing, but I know you're doing something. And I'm gonna trust you even though it doesn't make sense. And I would say all of the ambition, the things that I said that I would never do, like we had some even opportunities that were presented to us, and I was like, I would never do that. I would never do that. And literally at the end of that season, I remember I was face down on the ground, and I said, God, I'll do whatever. And it was at that moment of surrender, okay, which was the 100th moment of surrender. So it's not even the challenge with what I'm about to say is you can think, oh, the key is surrender. If I surrender, God's going to do what I want. No, we had hundreds of moments of surrender. But after that moment of surrender, I said, God, I'll do whatever you want me to do. A week later, everything came through. So it was just a crazy season. But God used that to strip away so much in me.
I just want to ask a clarifying question here because, well, first of all, again, I think all of our audience can resonate with what you're saying. You know, that you start doing things and you don't realize it
Totally.
until you go deeper into the pit of suffering that you're really trying to manipulate God.
Yep.
You know, and you even said, and this is my clarifying question, you were saying we had hundreds of moments of surrender. I think what you meant by that, where you were surrendering, but you were surrendering because you were still trying to manipulate God.
Yes.
But then you came to that moment where it was true, what we
Yeah.
might call true surrender,
Yeah.
where you're like,
Yeah.
I mean it, like deep in my soul, whatever, wherever.
Yeah.
That's where you got.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
And I think the challenge
And
the
but I
challenge
like that
with
it was a
that
process for you to get there.
Totally.
Because that's what we need to. We're human,
totally.
so it's okay that it was a process.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think the challenge with that is people may take from that story, oh, so once I get to complete surrender, God will move.
Yeah.
That's also not the case.
Mhm.
Like, it's not the case. And I think what's so funny is it kind of leans even, whenever we're talking about sovereignty and suffering and things like that, for me, I go straight to the book of Job, which is obviously part of wisdom literature, not history. It's wisdom literature. For those that don't know the story, Job has everything taken from him in the Bible. His family, he loses everything. And the reason he loses everything is because he's faithful.
Mm.
Like, Satan comes up to God and says, I want to take out Job. He will curse you. And he says, Job won't curse me.
I just got goosebumps when you said that because that's so key to understand. The reason,
It's because he was faithful.
and that is so in the face of if I live a good life, I
Yes.
should get a good
Oh,
life. The
for
reason
sure.
Job suffered because he was faithful.
Yeah. It's
Yes.
not good works.
So-
it's not
no.
performance.
And then the
Yeah.
crazier thing, so all these friends come to him, and the friends actually help us with wisdom because they're the idiotic friends that say a bunch of things that I feel like I often want to say, and it just wasn't true. They were like, well, surely you cursed God.
Yeah.
Surely you did something wrong. Surely you forgot a sacrifice.
Yeah.
Surely,
Yeah.
and none of that is true. Because again, it happened because he was faithful. So at the end, we asked this question, and we were like, why did God do it? Why did God do that to Job? Like, we know what was happening behind the scenes. We know what Job doesn't know. It was because he was faithful. And God never answers why.
That's what I find so fascinating.
At the end, he just says, He says, where were you when I created the foundation of the world?
He asked him like 84 questions or
Yes,
something, right?
yes. And you just have this moment where the end of Job, the book of Job, all you're left with is, you are God and I am not. And I'm thankful for the book of Job because it's part of the wisdom literature. Because the book of Job, again, Job never answers why it's in the Bible, but we know that it is a source of encouragement to us who is walking through the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, so we get to be encouraged by it. And my opinion is God did that so that we can have that story, that we can be encouraged. Even for me, I don't know all the whys of South Africa.
You still don't.
I still don't.
You guys still don't, yeah.
But all I know is what had happened to us and the lessons that God has taught us, God has used to help others.
Yeah.
So there's a part of me that I'm like, I think we had to walk through that because someone else is walking through something similar.
Yeah.
And they just have to hear, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't, and I'm just speaking from my life now. I can't speak for everybody else's, but I've heard enough stories and testimonies of people. I don't know that we can ever, as human beings, get to that point that Job did, where he surrendered. He said, or you got to that point.
Totally.
You know, you two got to that point where you go, you're God and I'm not. I don't know if we can get there without suffering.
100%.
Yeah.
How else do you
100%.
get to the
I
end
wish
of
that
yourself?
wasn't true.
Yeah.
I really
100%.
do.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
No, absolutely no way for you to get there without it. And if you think you did, it's a cheap form of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because what are you truly surrendering?
Yeah.
Because when you've gone through suffering, you're surrendering everything. You're surrendering your will,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
your emotion, and you're like, God, I'm putting it all on the table.
Your dreams, your future.
Whatever you want from me, the answer is yes. And I think the funny thing, I don't know why that's kind of the theme of our life, but in that season in South Africa, that's what it was. When it came to fertility, it was the exact same thing. It was, God, if this isn't what you have for us, then we're okay with it. Even when it comes to launching the church, like that was something that God had put on our heart when I was 18, and I'm 33 now, so we're 15 years past that moment. And I had to have those surrendering moments multiple times where I wanted to just jump the gun. I wanted to just do it. Like I said, I had a lot of ambition that had to die in me. And I'm so thankful that God allowed it to die and pushed me aside, that I didn't get ahead of myself and do something stupid. But in all those moments, God has always got us in waiting seasons. And part of it, I think, is to get us to places of true surrender.
I also think, though, that waiting seasons we've walked through, we thankfully, even early on in our journey of waiting in South Africa, waiting to come back to the U.S., we knew that we needed to turn it into a working season, even though we felt like so much was on hold, that like those little moments of surrender he talks
Paige,
about.
now I want to pause here again because I don't want our audience to miss what you just said. You were saying that you guys identified the fact that your waiting season, you would turn into a working season.
Yeah, we would say, like, we have to work the wait. It was truly a phrase that we would
we
tell
live
each.
by.
It was a mantra for us every day,
Work
because
the
wait.
and even in a season where it very much felt like we were in a straitjacket. We couldn't do anything. We couldn't get a house, get a car, do literally anything. We were staying with his parents. He couldn't get a job. I'm working for a company in America, we're trying to figure it out. But we would say, we're going to work the wait. We're going to figure out what we can do. So even when we felt like there wasn't much, it's like, we're going to maximize this season and milk it for everything it is. And those were the little moments of surrender that he spoke about along the way. It was just like, okay, we're going to work this wait. And then on the back end of it, when we've walked through it, like you said, we haven't had so many things are unanswered. And I think that is life, right? There's so many things that we will never know on this side of eternity.
Right.
But we're grateful for the little threads along the way, where I think in so many of us, you'll see a little bit of like, oh, I can kind of see that this had to happen. I wouldn't be here as Paige, the Paige that sits before you, if all this crap hadn't happened. Like, you can't have this without that. And so it's just what he spoke about, like finding purpose in our pain. And for us, that's been through sharing and through being vulnerable about what we've walked through, and just in hopes that, hey, we made it out on the other side with a little bit of hope, and still a little banged up and bruised up for sure, but God's healed that, and that's what brings the purpose, is like, even if it's to help one person know that they're not alone, it takes the sting out of the pain, but you'll never really fully know or understand.
Yeah.
And I think that actually can give purpose to anyone in a waiting season, is if you're going to be in a waiting season, you might as well be working in that season.
Mm-hmm.
You might as well be doing something. So a lot of that for us came out of, it actually came out of 1 Samuel, where David, you know the story, a lot of people know David and Goliath. David, at a really, really, really young age, gets called out of the shepherd's field to be anointed to be king. And it's like, so you read this in like verse 15 or 16. You read, he's anointed to be king.
It's a long time before he becomes
Yes,
king.
you think, oh, the next verse, he's going to become king.
Yeah.
And it's not. He gets sent back into the shepherd's field,
Yeah.
which means sometimes God can call you out of a situation, anoint you for a future situation, and put you back in the situation he just pulled you out of.
Wow. Yeah.
But what's crazy is many, 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 many years later, when he ultimately goes to defeat Goliath, which obviously was the incident that caused him to become king. So that was the incident that once that happened, the promise that was promised all these years ago, now you're able to step into it. The crazy thing about it is if you read that story, Goliath comes up to the battlefield and David runs to meet him. There's this confidence in David, which I'm like, either he was just silly, like he had no idea what was going on, or he had faith.
Yeah.
So obviously he goes and he slings this stone. And this wasn't just some random faith. This was a practiced faith. And you say, okay, where did that happen? Well, in the Bible, it talks about that people had the ability to sling stones with their left hand and not miss. They could hit a hair and not miss. So the question for us in that season was, where did David learn to sling the stone?
In the shepherd's field.
In the shepherd's. So the season where you're waiting,
wishing it away,
wishing it away,
Yeah.
could actually be the preparation season for the moment that God has in your future. That if you steward this season well, it is actually the thing that will get you where He's promised you from the beginning.
Yeah.
So, okay, wait. So God said that at some point we'd plant a church. So if I'm in South Africa, wow, maybe I should be writing messages. Maybe I should be preparing now for what He has then.
So you got 2 years of messages in your pocket now. Huh?
Yeah, I do.
No, man, Brad and Paige, I love what you're saying there and what you're pointing out. The verse, be still and know that I am God. I've seen that abused so many times because really in the original Hebrew, the idea of it is let go and let God. It's not to say don't do anything. Like so many times I've been like, well, I'm just be still and know that I'm God. I'm not doing anything.
No, you're being idle.
Yeah, you're being idle. It's saying let go of the control. It's saying get to where you were when you truly surrendered.
Yes.
And you're saying I'm letting go and I'm completely surrendered. That's what that verse is saying. It's
100%.
not saying not to do anything. It reminds me of a time years ago I had posted on my social media that I think it's Seneca, that Greek philosopher that wrote that thing, something about like if you don't know which port you're sailing.
Any wind is the right wind.
Any wind is the right wind. I posted that. Well, my daughter was in the Marine Corps and she was stationed in Okinawa at the time and she was in a very difficult time. So she sends me a direct message and just is like, yeah, but Dad, what if the wind's not blowing? Because that's where she was in her life. It's such a great question. What if the wind's not blowing? Like, what if I'm just sitting out there and it just feels like waiting?
Yes.
Waiting's painful.
Yes.
And I prayed because I didn't want to answer without like some wisdom. So I prayed a little bit and I finally responded to her and I just said, then start swabbing the deck and repairing the sails.
Brilliant.
It's exactly what you guys are talking about, right? Like, do something in that waiting period. Not to, and I think this is important to say because you guys brought it up, not to manipulate God.
Nope.
But just to go like, I'm trusting you in this waiting time and I'm going to do something while I'm waiting. Like you're saying to David's story, because David did believe he was going to be king someday.
Yes.
It was a lot longer than he thought.
Yeah.
But he was still working for that day that he would be king.
Yeah. And when that moment comes, you want to have done the work in the waiting season that when that moment comes, you're ready.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like even the desire to have kids, it's like, we were like, okay, well, what could it look like to prepare our finances for that moment? Like, what could it look like for us to prepare our lives for that moment? There's things that we can do. And the beauty of that, it might be a coping mechanism, but the beauty of that is you are giving purpose to that season.
Yeah.
And you're being faithful with that season. And you're stewarding that season.
Yeah.
So we've always lived, work the wait. We're going to work the wait.
So let me ask you this, though, Brad and Paige, because now, this, and I know when you're deep in the middle of pain, because I've been there before, and you hear stories like this, and you're like, oh, it's easy for you to say now because you're on the back end of it. You're on the other side of it. But you were in the middle of it.
Yes.
I've been in the middle of it. What would you say to some of our listeners that are maybe right now in the middle of maybe it's infertility,
Yeah.
maybe it's they just lost a loved one, maybe it's
Yeah.
like, I don't understand the why. And so they don't get to see the story on how God
Mhm.
kind of redeemed that or is using it. They're just in the messy, the muck and mire of
Mhm.
the brokenness. What would you say to them right now, just as an encouragement to them?
I I would say, well, first of all, I can relate because me telling someone, "You're gonna get through this," or whatever, I had so many people in my life in those times telling me those things, and it just felt like, "Wah, wah, 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 wah."
Mhm,
Like, so
mhm,
the first thing is I get it. I get if you're not in a place to believe anyone who's trying to build your faith or call you higher, like, so there's just me too, like, I've been there, but
mhm,
also I would just say find the small things. Find the small things that you can do, but also, like, journaling through it and, like, build almost like building, an altar around that season of, like because I'm gonna build the Bible speaks about building altars so you could look back on God's faithfulness and, not to want to go back to those dark seasons, but so that one day when you are out of it, you can go back and say, like, "My God has done this before, and he'll do it again." And I think, for me, I had to my only hope in some of those seasons was finding small areas because again, for me, it was about performance and like, "God, haven't I been through enough? Didn't have I not been good to you? Do I not read my Bible
mhm,
enough?" Like,
mhm,
it was just like, "What can I do?" That
Mhm.
manipulation, but for me, it was performance driven. It was just like, "God,
mhm.
you know I've been through so much.
Yeah.
My story is already crazy. I don't need more to my story." But looking back and saying, God, you were faithful in this
Yeah.
season. Even smaller seasons than the one I'm smaller issues than the things smaller waitings,
Mhm,
shorter waitings. But I think everyone can dig deep and find something that they could say, okay, I didn't think I'd come out of that, but I did. And you even if that's part of your morning routine or you having to show yourself that like God has shown up for me. And if
Yeah.
it's not God for you right now, it's just like I have dug myself out of the hole before and I'm capable of doing it again.
mhm.
And but still marking those moments. I always used to say like, God, let this leave a scar. Like, because I don't want to be the
'Cause the
same.
scar will
Not
be
a
a
wound.
reminder.
Not a
Yes. Yeah.
wound.
I don't want to,
A scar.
I don't want it to be an open wound. I don't want it to scab. Like, let this scar over, but let it leave a mark. Like,
I
I
wanna
don't want to
remember.
forget the desperate places because I even with friends and people in our lives now are grateful that we are able to be there with people, pray for people, pastor people even now through some of the especially infertility,
Yeah.
which is rampant in our world, walk them through and hold their hands through it and just be there and sit and just listen and maybe just be a reminder that God can.
Yeah.
I know he doesn't always, but he can. And for us, it has brought purpose to it.
Yeah.
But um, I often just try to encourage people to just walk faithfully one day at a time. Like it's not about people always say like, it's about the journey, not the destination. And I can find myself looking at friends that we're even walking through now, and I just say, man, like, doesn't the Lord feel so close? Though, like, don't you feel His presence in your those low moments in a way that you've never felt them
Mhm,
before? Because
mhm,
I can even miss that.
Yeah.
I find myself on the other side in a season where God's been so faithful, and we're not in this intense waiting season right now. There's little things we're waiting
mhm,
for.
mhm,
We always
mhm.
all are, but I can find myself. It sounds so crazy, but I can miss the intensity of the desperation I had on God and the
Oh,
Totally.
I
dependence
know.
I had on Him.
I don't wanna go back to those
No,
desperate times,
Right.
never.
but at the
But
same time, I'm like, "But I want that intimacy
the
with God that I
intimacy,
felt in those times."
yes,
And I
Brad, I'm
think
gonna give you a moment to answer in a second, but let me just ask you really
yeah.
quickly, what was a monument that you built? I like how you said that. There were these monuments
Mhm.
that we see that they were always reminders of what God did, and you were saying in those waiting times, those difficult times, be building one of those. What's a monument? And I know that's just a
Yeah.
metaphor and analogy you're using,
Yeah,
but
yeah. For me, I journaled and documented, and even I tried to force myself to, in that season, share. Even for me in that season, like online on social media, like document parts of my journey, because I found like connecting with people brought me so much purpose. For us, it was so unique, and at the time, a lot of people were just like, "This is so crazy! You got, especially with our deportation, like you got deported." But I journaled a lot privately and some publicly of just like what God was teaching me and forcing myself to find joy in those little moments. And and just so that I could look back. Like that was the monument to
that's the
see,
key,
like,
isn't
I
it?
found
That's the
joy in
monument.
this.
Yeah.
And so when I'm having a bad day now, I can be like, oh, you think this is a bad day? Remember this? And still, and even like be like, okay, I was able to find something good then. So there's a whole lot more
Yeah.
good going on in my
Yeah.
life. And I often say, like, to myself, don't let your answered prayer become your prayer request. So now I have 2 kids, and one of them's 5 months old and others 2, and they are multiple years of praying for them, and I'm walking in this answered prayer. But even as a mom, like I forced it to shape my motherhood, and I promised God, like, if you give me, it was part of my bargaining season with God, but I was like, if you allow me to have children, I promise I'll never complain. I'll never but I catch myself all the time just being like, oh, I've got to these kids, they're wearing me out,
Yes, you're the
but I
toddler age,
really feel like it has, I mean, I don't do it perfectly, but even with other mom friends that I have that haven't walked through what I've walked through, I'll catch just little things they say or little things where I'm like, oh, wow, like, and for anyone walking through that right now, it's like, that feeling of someone being like really incredibly tone deaf. They don't mean it. They've just not walked through what you've walked through. So now it's just like, gosh, these kids, what was I thinking? Or there were an accident or something. It's just like those little things that would never leave my mouth now, because like I'm walking in an answered prayer. The temptation is still real. And I have of course, I have young kids. They do things that frustrate me, and I get to the end of myself even still, but I make it a promise to God and to myself every day, like, don't let this answered prayer become your prayer request and become something that you're begging God to change, because I'm living out the days that I once dreamed.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things that I think
Living out the days I once dreamed.
it's easy to forget when you're walking through it. I think everyone has something they can find that is that answered prayer, or that thing they overcame if it's not a prayer. So it's kind of anchoring yourself and sobering your mind to remember.
Yeah. Paige, you said something that it made me think how often God must kind of smile at us. He's so good and patient with us, right?
No, totally.
But your prayer, and we've all prayed a prayer like that. Like, if you give me these, I'll never complain.
It's bargaining.
And I know, because you're a human, that you've complained.
Oh,
since
for
then.
sure.
But so I wonder how many times we pray a prayer like that,
sure.
and God just kind of smiles
I
and goes,
promise.
just kind of like you have little toddlers now. They say something now, and as an adult, you're like, okay, honey, that kind of thing.
No,
so, Brad,
up.
what would you say again for some of our listeners that aren't on the other side of pain? They're in the middle of it. What would you say to them?
It's so hard. But what I want to say is, especially as a Christian, hope is coming. I mean that in many ways. I think sometimes you can have someone, for example, Paige lost her mom. And I think even in that season, when her mom's fighting cancer, people can say, hope is coming, hope is coming, hope is coming. And people would want to promise that they're going to be fine and someone's going to be healed. And the truth is that isn't always the end of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Hope is coming. You're not going to go bankrupt. You might.
You might go bankrupt.
You might.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's hard. My worldview is a Christian. So if you're not a Christian, then it's very hard for me to say hope is coming, because I don't know what the end of that season will look like. And here's what I've realized. We are living on the other side of a garden. Garden of Eden was perfect. And then we sinned, and then we messed it up. And we are looking for perfection on this side of eternity, and we're just not going to find it. Yeah. We're on the wrong side of eternity.
Yeah.
But when we pass, we are on the other side of eternity. And if we know God, so either hope, the reason I say hope is coming as a Christian is hope is either going to come in this season. They may be healed. You may not go bankrupt. But if those things do happen, the statement is still true. As a Christian, hope is still coming. It might just be on the other side of eternity, if that makes sense. So I feel like, so that's where I'm like, as a Christian, hope is coming. Mm-hmm. And if someone doesn't know God, I would say you need to find hope. Yeah. And you find hope in God.
Well said.
You triggered a thought for me. Like, we always say, like, God is such a good father, and doesn't a good father want to give his children great gifts? And for us, something that was hard to come to terms with is timing, right? For when you're in the waiting season, it's just like, even on things that may come and you may know that they're coming, or eventually. It's like we kind of thought like, okay, we know we're going to get with deportation. We know we'll get there eventually, but when, God, like, why not now? Why are you causing this to wait? It literally wasn't supposed to take that long. So God, it feels like you're holding this up, but God is a good father and he wants to give his children good gifts. And sometimes the timing doesn't make sense to us. But I think
Timing is
about
key, yeah.
my son and last night we're making dinner and our son Saint just turned 2 in May and he's just demanding everything and everything's now. Like right now, like there's no patience. We use the word patience in our house frequently and we're always patience and doesn't understand that. So it's like we're making him dinner and his dinner is hot, fresh out of the microwave. It was a microwave meal night. And he's sitting there like, more please now please. Where's my food? And it's like, we're sitting there and the food is piping hot. My son has this huge desire. He's hungry. He wants to eat and he can see the food sitting on the table. And as much as his mind cannot understand why he can't have this food that he's hungry for, he can see it. It's right in front of him. But Mom, Dad, why can't I have it now? But as parents, like we know better. And we know that a gift given too soon is no longer a gift. This food would no longer be help. Like it will burn him. It will hurt him. It won't help him if I give it to him now. He can't understand that with his 2-year-old brain, but I can. And I try to be a good mom. So I'm going to wait to give him his food until it's ready. And so that's where I think it's an eternal mindset and perspective. And we always say, I may not understand until heaven one day because God understands beyond what we ever will. Like we don't get to age out of that 2-year-old phase here, but it's like, God knows we don't.
That's such a beautiful illustration or analogy because we think we grow up, but we are still that little 2-year-old kid.
No, 100%.
And that 2-year-old kid, sometimes they're mad at you.
Yeah.
They're mad at you because I'm hungry. And
why would you give it to me?
Fit. Yes. Like the food's right here. You won't let me take a bite of it.
Yeah.
I think the least believed and lived out verse in the Bible maybe is the Isaiah one where God says, my ways are higher than your ways, my thoughts higher than your thoughts. How much higher? Higher than the heavens are from the earth. Mm-hmm. And the heavens are from the earth. We're still discovering how far that is out there.
Yes.
And when I say it's the least believed and lived out is because, like to your point, I think I know what I need.
Mm-hmm.
Straight up.
I think I know what needs to happen in this moment. But again, true surrender is coming to the point where you go, you're God and I'm not, like you said before. And that's what you're dealing with your 2-year-old, is you're trying to help your 2-year-old understand that, but we're all still trying to learn it as adults, aren't we?
No, straight up.
Yeah,
straight up.
Yeah. And you also mentioned something else I don't want to forget, and it comes up. It's kind of a regular theme on this podcast, I think. I believe the goodness of God is the skeletal system that all our theology needs to hang on.
100%.
That if God isn't good, and you mentioned it, Paige, you talked about the goodness of God, but if God isn't good, then his holiness and his justice and his love, everything else comes into question.
Yeah.
And so that, again, for listeners, if you're wrestling with the goodness of God, I would just go to him on your knees and beg him to show you his goodness. Because once you understand in the depths of your soul and really believe that God is good, doesn't mean that you may doubt it at times. You're human. But when you understand the depths of your soul, it really changes how we walk through things.
It makes me even think of something. There's a verse that people like to talk about where they say that God works all things together for the good of those who love him, who are called according to his purpose. And the way that we read that is God works all things together for my good. Yeah. And that's not what it says. It's just not what it says. I think I
interpreted it for a long time.
Like I think of Jesus on the cross, and he's like, God works all things together for my good.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
He's got nails in his wrists and feet. Yeah,
it wasn't for his good. It was for our good. So sometimes I look at things that I'm walking through, and this might not be what I define good for me, but I'm like, oh no. God is allowing me to walk through something because he trusts me. Job. Sometimes God's allowing you to walk through something because you're faithful. Mm-hmm. And he knows he can trust you with that pain because he's wanting to use that pain for someone else's good. Works all things together for someone else's.
That you may never see. Yeah. That's the part we think we're going to see the purpose in our pain. We're going to see, like the Bible speaks, God's never a debtor. Like, and he'll repay us for the years the locusts have eaten. And I always say he's never a debtor, but that doesn't mean I will see it
in this life.
Right. It is happening, and I have to trust him that it's happening. But I may never see the end of this thread, the end of this journey.
Can you imagine that paradigm shift? Like I'm walking through pain because I did something wrong, okay? Or I'm walking through pain because I'm trusted.
Huge paradigm shift.
Like, oh, wait, I'm walking through pain because he knew I'd be faithful with it.
Yeah.
But so many
And I
times
see
we're not
both in
ready
my
for
life,
that.
though.
Yeah.
No,
Right? Like
totally.
I see, there's been times
Pain
where
that
I
you
look
just
back
caused.
and I go, I got to just
Pain
be
I
honest
caused.
here.
Yeah.
This was my stupidity.
This was my fault.
Can't
Yeah,
blame this on
totally,
God.
totally.
Can't ask you
No,
why.
100%.
Yeah.
Because I did this. But like you're saying, it's a paradigm shift to go that, again, the fallacy, if I live a good life, I should get a good life. It's not true. It's
Yeah.
not
No.
what God said.
No.
It could be, what a shift in thinking to go like Job,
Yeah.
I don't understand all the whys. I don't understand what you're going to do with this, but I'm going through this because you trust me with this.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. We have to have the character to keep us there, because so many times, like I in my life, I'm like, I don't want it though, God. Like, I'd rather have the thing that, like, cool, you trust me, but like, why? Like, you know, like,
Please
and
stop trusting me.
so that like, it's easy to say, but hard to live.
Yeah.
And so for people listening who are in that place, it's like, it's something to hold on to, but it's also, I get it. If it's like, okay, like, yes, I want to please God, but it's like, and that's part of the sanctification process, is like, it, even if that's all it is, that's good enough, because so often I want to grip to like the answer to prayer and be like, okay, yeah, God, you trust me, but you're still going to do this, right? Like, you're still going to get me there, right? And that's the faith journey. That is our faith. That is, it's a daily surrender and not knowing the outcome, believing for something. I always pray like, God, I know you can, and I pray you will.
Yeah.
But it's your will, not my will be done. So, and that's the hardest reality to live. It's so easy and cute to say, but it's really hard to live.
Well, I throw one more piece out, and then I want to pivot our conversation a little bit to something else that you guys talked about before we turn the mics on. But I think one of the other things, or one of the tragedies sometimes with our theology, deep within our soul, we wouldn't say it necessarily, but we think, I mean, I was, when I was doing public speaking, I just tended, my style was kind of a motivational type person. So, you know, it was a lot of like, reach your destiny, be all that God made you to be, you know? And I do believe that. I believe, but I have come to learn that's secondary.
Yes.
His primary goal for me, and he says this, is to make me more like Jesus.
Yes.
And to have intimacy with me.
Yes.
So I actually may go through something in life that doesn't cause me to be everything I could have been with the talents and gifts that God gave me, but it leads me to a more intimate relationship with him and to be more like Jesus, then he's going to do that in my life.
Oh my gosh.
Right? So that's kind of a slight pivot there, where I think a lot of times, again, it was kind of a subtle lie I had believed, like God's going to make me all I was made to be.
And I think some of that is it is a misunderstanding of what we're here for. It's a misunderstanding of our purpose. It's a misunderstanding of why we exist. Like, so often people will say, like, why am I here? And we'll say things like, oh, you need to live into your destiny and that be all you can be. And those things are true. But you were mentioning Isaiah earlier, earlier. And there's a verse in Isaiah that it says, where God actually gives us the meaning of our existence and the meaning of life. Like, everyone who's searching and they're like, why do I exist? The Bible actually answers it. And God says this, bring everyone who is called by my name, whom I created for my glory. Why do we exist? You exist for God's glory.
Yep.
But there's two competing worldviews, because what everyone else will say in the world is, it's not God's glory, it's my glory. It's not his will, it's my will. It's not his way, it's my way. So we're living into this paradigm, and then we're wondering why we're confused. But if we understand that the whole reason we're here is for his glory. So I'm walking through pain, and it doesn't make sense. His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. But I'm walking through pain that he can be glorified in it. Because when I'm walking through the hardest of moments, when I'm walking through suffering, when I'm walking through, and I can say, God is still good. He is most glorified in that moment than any other moment. So when I understand that's my purpose, then could it be that I'm actually fulfilling my purpose most in suffering? Because I'm able to glorify him in a greater way in my suffering.
That's a painful,
isn't it?
There's a painful answer to that,
isn't
but
it?
also glorious answer in that.
It is.
You're right. And even some of the earliest creeds, were like the chief end of humans is to glorify God and enjoy him forever. Like that's kind of going back to the Isaiah passage you're talking about. All right, let's pit. This has been so good, and I'm loving this. We could talk for hours, man. We could talk for hours.
This is fun.
But this is, of all of the podcasts that we've posted over the years, we've been doing this for, I think it's 4 years, coming on August or whatever. The ones that are most listened to are the ones that deal with pain, suffering.
Wow.
And it's because it's universal, right? We're not getting out of this life without suffering, regardless of who you are. But I want to pivot. Before we turn on these mics, you guys were talking about your dating relationship and then getting married, and you said you were friends for 2 years.
Yeah.
And I made the comment, I'm like, oh, that's the way to start a relationship, because friendship is really the core of
It is.
of a healthy marriage, I think. And you know, so you guys actually started yours with a foundation. You didn't realize at the time you were just friends, but speak into that a little bit.
Yeah, it's so funny. We fell into it actually by accident.
As we're wrapping up this episode, be sure to leave us a 5-star review. And if you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment on something you'll take away. All right, let's hop back into the remainder of the episode.
Obviously, I met Paige. She was actually friends with my roommate. So, you know, we became friends and whatnot. And then eventually, we became incredibly close friends. And I know people often are like, yeah, whatever. Like,
Everyone's
you know, everyone
like, "We were
says that.
friends
Like, we were
first."
friends
Yeah.
first. And I'm like, no. Like, Paige was like, I need to introduce you to my friend.
I was wing woman.
Like
yeah,
it,
I
like
was
we
like,
were. It
Yeah.
was.
Here's
It
my
was
friend.
legit. Like
Yeah.
it was legit.
Yeah, we just had no like romantic interest in one
No.
another. We really like respected one another, but just didn't. We had both kind of different reasons for why we had been like kind of ruled out the other
Yeah,
person as a possibility. So it was like
I didn't look like Zac Efron, you know.
Oh,
So I'm
yeah.
like-
exposing me for my celebrity crush.
I'm literally joking. I'm joking. No, so we had this moment when we were dating, and Paige was, you know, there was this girl, and Paige was like, you know, like why don't you pursue it with this girl? And she started backing away, and I was like, but what are you doing? And she's like, there is no woman on earth that would be comfortable with our friendship. And she says we're too close. And she said this line. She said, our friendship is terminal. It's gonna have to end.
Wow.
And I was like, and I had this moment, and she was like, either our friendship ends or we get married. She's like,
Either way, we're not friends
she says,
anymore.
e-
We're either
like-
husband and wife, or we're
Yeah.
not friends. We
And,
could
like,
be
my
mutual
brain-
friends between our spouses,
Yeah.
but we believed like if I'm in a relationship, I was like, once I'm dating someone, like I have to honor that person.
Yeah.
We
You
can't
can't have
like
a friendship
we
like
were
that
always
with-
completely platonic and had like healthy friendship boundaries, but I don't think a friendship between a man and a woman outside of a relationship was healthy
Yep.
for that. So when
Yep.
we were single, it was totally appropriate, but
Yep.
the reality hit him. I had lived in that and was
Did
just
you
like,
actually
yeah.
use those words? Do you
Oh,
remember where you
absolutely.
said
No,
where
that
you
is-
said our friendship is
But-
terminal?
and that's
yeah,
the
a
thing.
quote.
Those are your
That's
those
a
are
quote.
quote.
That is a quote.
But we were that's even like we were
Yeah.
truly so close. Like we spent a lot of time together. We were very honest with one another because we're in this season of like we weren't like sussing each other out. We weren't thinking maybe like, and so many people date with, they'll say we're just friends. That's why we always are like, no, you weren't just friends. Because they're still friends with a mask on, to just be like putting their best foot forward, or like, yeah, we're friends first, meaning we're not crossing any like romantic boundaries, but there's interest on
interest.
one side or the other. For us, that was never the case. So we were truly like, we were more intimate in a friendship than a lot of people are in a dating relationship, because it's like he would rock up to my house and just, like I have no makeup on. I'm just like, oh hey bro, like he
Yeah.
was like a brother in Christ to me, truly the
Yeah,
true
yeah.
way that people speak about it
Yeah.
before. And I had no intention of trying to be with him, so I had nothing to lose. I wasn't trying to hide or protect part of me. I was like, if you're gonna be my friend, you're like a girlfriend. Is
Yeah.
kind of how like I treated him.
Yeah.
And so there was a level of intimacy and deep like love for one another that grew. So when we kind of crossed over, so back to when we had that conversation.
No, it was so funny. She's like our friendship's terminal, and so you know either we have to get married or you know whatever. So I have this moment where I'm like, oh my gosh, and I was like, should we date? Like it, like
He
that's
said that to me.
How romantic. I was like,
No, he
I was
said
like,
that
yeah.
to me
I was like,
out
should-
loud. He said,
I was like-
so does that mean we should
Well,
date?
you
like,
guys were
so
good
should-
friends, so you
I was
could
like,
handle
so
that.
should,
Yeah.
I was like, should we date?
I was like,
And then
what?
we slowly start stepping into it, and it was awkward.
It was weird.
Like the first time we held hands, we were like, and then I was like, hey, babe, and
was like-
she's like, don't call me that.
I said, ew,
Like-
no, I'm not ready for that. I'm not ready for
Like,
that.
That's
It's just like,
hilarious.
because romance.
You guys are probably like a
followed.
1 in a million relationship, right? Because
I know.
I'm gonna go back what you said. Like I always have said that. I've been like my wife and I. We knew each other since 6th grade. We started
Yeah.
dating our sophomore year. We dated 4 years. We got married at 19. I always say like, oh, we were friends before. Well, kind of. Because to your
Yeah,
point, Paige,
yeah.
when we were dating as our sophomore, we were just friends, but there was still a romantic interest there.
Yeah.
You guys are saying it was truly a friendship where
Totally.
you're not trying to put your best foot forward.
You're just
you do what
authentically
friends do.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yes.
And at a time, there wasn't even physical attraction.
Yeah.
So like that's the other thing. And we have a saying that we say now, we're like, if you take two crooked sticks and rub them together long enough, you'll get a fire.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is like
Are we the crooked
I like that.
we're the crooked sticks. It's like attraction can come.
Yeah, we don't have issues there now.
Like
Just to
like
update
attraction.
everyone.
Like
we're
now
very
I'm like
attracted to each
now
other
I'm like
now.
you're the most beautiful girl in the world, and she is my standard. But it's funny because everyone thinks, oh, we need to start attraction first, and then hopefully there's a friendship there. Here's the challenge, though. Like obviously, Proverbs even talks about it. Beauty fades.
Yep. Yep.
Beauty fades, and when that beauty fades, if you've built your relationship on beauty, well, what if? And we even hear this with a lot of affairs happen while wives are pregnant. And it's in that moment, they're not doing their makeup and all the different. Does that make sense? And so you have
they're
these
throwing
moments,
up because they have morning sickness. And,
or
Their
even
bodies
So
changing.
if your relationship was built on infatuation, that's not, this.
Yes. Now, obviously, we think when our wives are pregnant, they're the most beautiful people in the world. But we've often seen that in culture because you've built your relationship on something that fades.
Yeah.
Versus friendship.
Yeah.
When all that other stuff fades, oh my gosh, she's still my best friend.
Yeah.
I just like to hang out with you.
Yeah.
Like I just want to watch TV with you.
Yeah.
I just want to go on a walk with you.
Yeah. And ultimately we know now, like we were attracted to each other, just it was more like a subconscious like attraction in the sense of like we loved spending time together. We didn't think we were physically attracted to each other, but it's like attraction just looked different of like we gravitated towards each other.
Yeah.
And even fast forward to our story, like it's one of those things that had to happen that way. That had to be how God did our story because we were robbed of our honeymoon season of marriage because the first 2 years were hell and in us trying to navigate. But we always say like it was the hardest 2 years of our life, but our marriage was never hard. None of it was our marriage that was
easy.
hard.
Yeah.
Marriage was easy because the foundation was solid on friendship and the moments where we couldn't
amazing.
physically be together or do like have a traditional like our first home together. It's like we lived with his parents for the first 2 years.
Yeah.
So
Highly recommend.
it had to happen.
Well, man, Brad and Paige, this has just been amazing. I can tell we could talk for hours, man. This is
It's
so
been
cool.
so fun.
Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for sharing your pain. And also just about the friendship. I mean, I think there's so much that our listeners and myself are going to take from this. How can people get connected to you? Some of our listeners are local. I know about the time that this is going to drop. You guys will have planted a church here in the Chandler area, right?
Wild.
Yes.
Chandler, Arizona area. So how would people, if they want to get a hold of you, what would they do?
Yeah, we're on social media.
Instagram.
On Instagram. My handle is Brad Straarup.
You won't be able to
There's
spell
Paige
that, so
Straarup.
hopefully there's a title slider in the
Yeah.
description or something. But yeah, Paige Straarup.
So it's just your name. It's your name.
Literally just our names.
Yes,
Yeah.
and we're launching Spirit Church in Chandler, Arizona this fall. So maybe by the time this podcast is out, we'll even be having services. But so we'd love to just anybody searching for a place to call home, community, a place to meet God and encounter Him in a really special way. We'd love to connect.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, good. Well, we're going to wrap it up with this. It's kind of my favorite part of the podcast because it's ironic, 2 truths and a lie.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
I'm ready.
No gray areas. I'm going to ask you to lie to me. So you're going to give me, and how about we start with you, Brad? You can give me 3 statements. 2 are going to be truths. 1 is going to be a lie. I got to try to guess the lie.
Wait, I actually need to pull up my phone.
Yeah. Go ahead. Do you have yours?
I have mine.
All right, we'll
Okay.
start with you, Paige.
She has her locked and
I
loaded.
have mine
Yeah.
memorized, I think. The first one, I was an extra in a movie with Leonardo DiCaprio. The second one, I am a trained opera singer. The third one, I was bitten by a tiger.
Oh my goodness, these are so fun. Okay. Oh my goodness. I have no idea. I'm just going to take a wild guess. A lot of times I can kind of get it down to 50-50. Like there's one of them. This was good. Trained opera singer, I'm going to say is true.
Yes, it's true.
Okay, so now I got a 50-50. That was a complete guess.
That was
too.
great.
Yeah. I'm going to say you're an extra in a movie too. You have not been bitten by a tiger. That's the lie.
The lie is that I was not an extra in a movie.
You've been bitten by a tiger?
I was bitten by a tiger. It was a baby tiger, but I was bitten by a tiger.
Cool story.
We were at in South Africa, like a little baby animals like petting zoo, and I was holding a baby lion. I actually have a photo of it. I was holding a baby lion, and he was holding a baby tiger, and we're posing for the photo. And they're still large, like about this big, and he's holding the baby tiger, and we're like posing, and his responsibility, which was the baby tiger, reaches over, and my whole arm is in its mouth and clamps down on my arm. No blood was shed, but it did hurt, and I was bit by a tiger.
Not many people can say that. All right,
And
Brad, how about you?
She wasn't.
I've been in extra movies, but just never with Leonardo
Okay,
DiCaprio.
that's
Okay.
cool. Those were good ones. Okay, Brad, go ahead.
I was held up at gunpoint.
Okay.
My cousin was bit by a bull shark in open water. I played the biggest festival in South Africa in a rock band.
Okay. Man, those are good ones too. You seem like the type of guy that was held up at gunpoint. I'm going to say that's true.
It's true.
Okay. Yeah.
Also
Yeah,
in South
I mean,
Africa.
there's some people that in South
You're
Africa.
like,
yeah,
that's probably
the
true.
tourism trade in South Africa is
Yes.
not happy with you right now. You got
No.
bit by a tiger there and
No.
got held up at gunpoint.
It's a great place.
All
Go.
right, your cousin got bit by a bull shark. That's true.
That is true. There we
Okay.
go. Great job.
Oh man,
Great job.
All right.
So did play at the biggest festival, not in a rock band, in a jazz band, in a jazz pop band.
Oh,
So it's-
what do you play?
Drums.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's cool.
So
okay,
we always do a slight truth, a
yeah,
slight lie.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
fun.
it's
though.
great.
What a fun
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
That's great. That's a great game.
Yeah,
It's a great
that's
game.
fun
It's like we're
It's a
allowed
fun
to
game.
lie, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly. Yeah, we Christianize it. To
Yeah,
make
yeah,
it-
yeah, yeah,
We'll
yeah.
turn it into a game.
Yeah.
Well, hey, thank you again for being on here. We really appreciate
Thank you for
it.
having
Thanks
us.
for
Thank
your
you for
story,
having us.
and
Huge honor.
congrats on you guys getting ready to launch the church.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor.
What an honor it was to share that vulnerable conversation with Brad and Paige. Their story is a reminder that hope is coming, and that even in the darkest waiting seasons, God is working. If this episode moved you, be sure to subscribe and share it with someone who needs a fresh perspective or a little bit of hope. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon in our next episode of No Gray Areas.